glad you all could join us this evening. And I think hopefully we'll have a few more people trickle in here, but we do have a few join us already. So I'd just like to start by thanking Nicole Burkhardt for joining us tonight. And she comes to us with a lot of experience. And I'm just going to share a little bit about her background before she gets into the workshop. So Nicole is a business development officer with the Department of Agriculture based in Cornwallis. She grew up in Montreal and is trilingual. She speaks English, French, and Spanish. She graduated from Trent University with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences and International Development Studies. During her undergrad, she studied urban agriculture in Havana, Cuba during a semester abroad and got a scholarship to study rare breeds of farm animals in rural Mexico for a summer. She continued to work in agriculture during a summer internship with the Research and Development Institute for the Agri-Environment in Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec, collecting IPM data for the apple industry and conducting research on the plum curculio. She came to Nova Scotia for an NSERC graduate assistantship involving organic high bush blueberry production and obtained a master's in agriculture from Dalhousie University, or NSAC, in 2018. After some consulting work, she started with the Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture in 2010 as an agricultural transition officer and took a year leave in 2019 to work for a global online education company for small-scale farmers. In 2020, she returned to the department in a new role as a business development officer. Her focus is on supporting producers, agribusinesses, and industry groups with their businesses and strategic planning, marketing strategy, financing options, and profitability. She specializes in online marketing and sales, helping producers be more effective with their online presence so they can increase their visibility in sales. She has a keen interest in women entrepreneurship and championing agriculture diversity and inclusion. So that is quite the palette of experience that Nicole's bringing to us tonight. I really look forward to what she has to share with us. So enjoy. And Nicole, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hello, welcome everybody. So we're going to be diving into marketing and social media. And I want to just make sure that I mention there seems to be some installation, software installation in progress on my computer. And I'm really hoping that halfway through it just doesn't like restart. But if it does, I will do my best to come back as quickly as possible. It might just totally be fine. But onward and upward. So I just wanted to give a big welcome. Oops, how come it's not? There we go. Excellent. My slides are working. So I just want to go over what we're going to be covering tonight. I want to kind of, and this is where I'm going to have to, I think, lean on Catherine to see she can share what's coming in the chat for me to ask you questions. I'm really interested in who's here to know what you sell and how you're using social media to market what you sell. So you can start typing as I kind of go through the agenda here, and you can kind of let me know. And when I'm done at the end of the slide, I'll ask Catherine if there's anything, if you've written anything, and then we can see who's in the room, the virtual room. So I'll go over the objectives of the presentation. Social media, personal versus business. There's definitely some similarities and there are quite a few differences. So we'll just kind of go through those a little bit. We'll look at different business models and using social media marketing and how they're different if you have a supply managed farm, if you're direct marketing, or you focus on wholesale and restaurants. I know from my initial meeting with young farmers, some of the people, actually, I think 3 of the farmers who were on the call were dairy farmers. And I had originally thought when I was asked to do this presentation of direct marketers. And so it just made me realize that there's going to be, or potentially there could be quite a range of different kinds of farmers on the call. And we can talk about a little bit different strategy depending on what your business model is. And then we'll go over the kind of like a who, what, where social media strategy for your farm. We're going to talk about your team, like who's working on social media. We're going to go over the concept of this content umbrella so that you can have a visual kind of mind map kind of a tool that can help you with your creating content for social media. And we'll talk a little bit about the platforms. So I'm going to be focusing mainly on Facebook and Instagram because that's what I've really seen when I work with different farms. That's what they tend to be using most. And that's what I know most as well. So that's kind of the lay of the land tonight. Catherine, are there any comments in the chat in terms of who's here, what what they sell, how they're using social media? Oh, I think I can see the chat now. Oh, good.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And Sunnycroft Farm, is that, I'm just curious, is that a dairy farm or is it, yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly. So telling your story. So that's fantastic. Thanks, Jeanette, for sharing. All right, so we're gonna, for some reason that's not working. No, this way. Okay, so my objectives tonight are for you to have more clarity about how to use social media for marketing and selling your products, and also to have practical tools and tips to be able to take action immediately. And I'm sure, quite a few people, we're talking about, Nova Scotia young farmers. So out of, all the clients I work with, I would assume that a lot of you will be very familiar with social media, very comfortable with social media. But it could be that there will be certain tips or tools that might be new to you, and hopefully they'll be helpful for you. All right, just going over a little bit of personal versus business. So I'm just curious, who has a business profile and which platforms do you use? Do you tend to, do people use Twitter? Do they tend to focus on Facebook? Do they focus on, or is it more TikTok or Instagram? Just kind of curious what you use personally. And also if you happen to have a Facebook business page, I forgot to include Instagram business profile. Just curious, like what people are using right now.
There are a few messages in the chat.
And just, yeah, great. Yeah, Facebook and Insta, okay. So personal and business, Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so it sounds like you're using them separately, which is definitely a good idea. I think some people, I find especially maybe more of an older generation, get very confused around, but I'm already on Facebook. And also, they don't really know the difference between like pages, groups, and personal profiles. So it's definitely a good idea to have them separate, have your personal profile and then to have a separate business page, and to not have it as a personal profile, but to actually have it as a business page. So I'm just reading what Rebecca's saying, that she's always shared a bit of farm content on my personal social pages, and have just recently started a Facebook page for our farm. So a personal Facebook page and business page. Okay, great. Okay, it seems as though Facebook tends to be the predominant social media platform. And what we typically see too is that in Nova Scotia, we have such a high usage level of Facebook especially, and that tends to be sort of like the go-to one. So if somebody doesn't have one, that would probably be the one to focus on. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end in terms of, whether to have Facebook and Instagram and that kind of thing. All right. And in terms of, when I think about when I post on my personal page, it's quite subliminal, or something I'm not really always conscious about. But I do always post with an audience in mind. If I have something I'm sharing or something that I want to say, I tend to really have this inkling of it's for, you know, my family, or it's for my friends who live in the area, or my old friends from university. So that's kind of where I want to start in terms of really knowing your audience. And I'm just curious if you notice that too, if when you're posting personal or business, that you have that kind of at the back of your mind, who you're posting for. And typically in our personal profiles, we tend to share pictures of ourselves and kind of these like behind the scenes sometimes of like maybe what you're eating or the mess the kids left, you know, like unraveled all the toilet paper, for example. That's a recent one for me. And so social media for business is really about the visibility of you know, putting yourself out there in the world and educating, especially if it's, oh my goodness, restart required. Well, I'm not going to do it, and I hope it doesn't just happen on its own. I really hope it doesn't. Anyway, so of course, especially if you are, let's say, a dairy farm, the reason why you have a Facebook business page may be more for the education piece. And then, of course, reaching if you're especially a direct marketer, to reach your ideal customers in order to increase sales. All right, so yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the different business models. So for direct marketing, you're really looking for to have a business profile on Instagram or have a Facebook page for brand awareness, to reach customers directly, and also to make sales. So when I'm working with farm clients, a lot of times they may be lacking the whole sales posts around how people, like really clear directions of how people can buy from them, where they can find their items. And sometimes farms might seem a bit lost in what they're supposed to be. They may not know what they're supposed to be posting about, and they might kind of have like a random review. This one, I think I don't know if you all caught this, but I had asked that if any direct marketers are here this evening, if you wanted to talk about some of your challenges with posting or things that work really well as the direct marketer. And I was mentioning for supply managed commodities. So if you're a dairy farmer, chicken farmer, egg farmer, you might be more into education and really fostering public trust. And it might be also more kind of like farmer to farmer. So the audience that you have in mind, I'm interested to hear from the supply managed folks on the call. Do you think about your audience as your neighborhood, your local community, or do you think of it more internationally or nationally, that you're kind of connecting with you might be connecting with other dairy farms or sharing information from like Dairy Farmers of Canada or something like that? So I'm just curious about like, who is your audience when you are supply managed commodity using social media? And then if your business model really focuses on wholesale or selling to restaurants, you're not necessarily direct marketing. Of course, a lot of farms may all have direct marketing. Like you might go to a farmer's market and you may sell to restaurants and you may sell to, local grocery store or something like that. Or you may just have a wholesale model where you are selling to Sobeys. So in that case, using social media is really about visibility, also getting business leads. Especially Instagram is really good for that in terms of, finding, or chefs finding you, restaurants finding you, or maybe if you are in talks with Sobeys or Loblaws that, you know, they'll probably check out your social media and see what you have, you know, that what you're putting out there, and maybe get a sense of your brand. So in a sense, that, you know, using social media for business leads and that kind of business relationship building can be really important for that segment, that business model, and of course for brand awareness as well. So let's see if I'm able to see the chat again, because, oops, no. It's funny, it's not really showing it to me. So are there any kind of questions or comments in the chat about business models?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the who, what, where. So the what is going to be kind of the meatiest piece. But in terms of the who, when I talk to people, a lot of times this is an issue. The who is doing it. You know, do they have time to do it? I wouldn't necessarily say the younger generation, but maybe more a little bit older generation of farmers that aren't as familiar and comfortable on social media. You know, they say they may not even have a smartphone. They know it's important to be on social media in order to connect with customers and potential clients, but they might try to rely on, you know, a niece or nephew or somebody in their family that's a bit younger. And it seems as though with that, all of a sudden, it's kind of one step away from, you know, the people running the business. So sometimes the commitment to posting or the commitment to, or kind of knowing what to post is even more far removed. So that's always an important thing to consider. Who is the team? You know, who are the people who have access to, let's say, the Facebook page, because obviously multiple people can access a Facebook page. But just be really clear around who's going to do that work. Do they have access to it? Is the commitment there? Do they have the time to do it? And of course, for a lot of people, social media tends to be sort of off the side of the desk because the production tends to be, you know, such a focus of the business, right? Like producing the vegetables, you know, seeding the flowers, you know, feeding the animals, etc. So it tends to be kind of we'll do it at the end of the day if we have time or something like that. But there are certainly many farms who are doing this really well, and they're able to really connect with their ideal customers in a really genuine way. So we're going to dive into the what. So we're going to talk about core message, content, so posts, pictures, videos, and come up with, you know, talking a little bit more about how to come up with content. And then we'll talk more specifically about the platforms themselves. So this is a quote that you may have heard before. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So the reason why I put this up here is in our conversation about your core message and really carrying the message of your brand in social media. It's really important to focus on, to really know and be very clear about your own values and about, you know, why you're farming, or, you know, do you feel like farming is a calling? Do you really love the freedom that it provides of being an entrepreneur? Do you have a sense of pride because you are farming the land that has been your family for 6 generations? Or maybe that you have a certain breed of cattle that is really dear to you because, you know, you worked with them in 4-H or something like that. So you might have your reasons for being a farmer. You might have, you know, certain things that you hold dear, and those things usually come through in your messaging, and it all kind of comes back to, I think I'm still here. It just kind of,
Yep, you're here.
okay, all right, we're good. Yeah, just that all those, the why of farming is really important to your brand message. So are you clear on your mission and vision and why, you know, why you farm? I'm just curious, do any of you have a written out mission and vision for your business? A lot of times this is part of a business plan. I know for, you know, working with clients for Small Farm Accelerator or other programs where we're helping farmers with their business plan, we now have templates for mission and vision. I'm just curious if that's something that you have written out, or that's something that you is very clear for you, or is it a little bit murky and something that you could work on? Because that would definitely help, you know, distill your ideas and everything for really having like a core message for your brand.
And I'll just pop in and say, if anybody would rather like say their answer out loud rather than type it out, if you just want to raise your hand, I can unmute you, and then you can just chat with Nicole if
Perfect.
if you would rather that. Just to throw that out there.
So in terms of another thing, obviously, when we're looking at putting things on social media, it's really important to know who your audience is, or have an idea of the audience that you're speaking to. And so what can help with figuring this out, and of course it depends on, you know, are you a brand new business and you may not necessarily know your customers very well yet, or you have a Facebook page that maybe has mainly your friends and family on it, you know, because they're supporting you. So you may not have a good idea of your customers right now, or you might have a page that you've been, you know, posting on for like 10 years, and you might have 1,000 followers or something like that. So you can look at the profiles of the picture, of the people who follow you. You know, you can do that on Instagram, you can do that on Facebook. So you can take a look at, you know, where are they? Are they kind of like, you know, out in Europe or something, or South America? Are they just somebody who found your farm and thought, oh, these people are interesting? Or, you know, are they people in your community that could potentially be buying from you or do buy from you? And then you can kind of see, like, what are they interested in? You know, they might have certain things on their, I'm not saying to look at every single person who follows your page, but just as kind of like getting a sense of who your you know, average followers may be, because that can be some good kind of customer research. And you can kind of just take a look at their page, see what kind of things they're interested in, what they might be posting in, you know, where they're from. And that's kind of the virtual kind of customer research. But you can also, of course, just if you're going to the farmers market, or if you have you know, chefs that you work with or something, you can kind of like write down their characteristics. And if you think about, you know, your the people who buy the most from you, for example, like your real loyal fans, what sets them apart? And you know, what kind of things are important to them? you know, what kind of things would they enjoy interacting with in terms of content. So you can do a bit of that customer research online and in person. Of course, if you can send people surveys or even have a survey, maybe do like a Google form and then put the link on your Facebook page, you know, you can kind of see if you can get some responses from people to learn a little bit more about your audience. All of that really helps in gearing your messaging to be able to really speak to them. So I do see the chat now, so I can take a peek. But just to say that the next thing we're gonna look at is some content brainstorming. And I came across this mind map that's kind of like in the shape of an umbrella that it really helped to visualize how to come up with content. So I'll share that with you tonight. Okay, so Tyler Jordan was saying we certainly need to improve vision, mission statement, and core values. I'll just make a note to, I can copy and paste if this is helpful, the kind of prompt or like the template from our business plan, and then I can send that to Catherine or Nicole to send along if anybody still would like to work on their mission vision statement. And it's good to review it too, right? Every year, every couple of years, because it's something that you're always refining, right? You're kind of like evolving as a person or like as a business. So it's always good to go back to that and sort of remind yourself, like, is this still relevant, and does this best represent us, or do we need to sort of, you know, state it in a different way? And then when you're really clear on, you know, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what your mission and vision are, and your core values, you know, you just really are able to come from a place of confidence. So, and that really comes through when you're writing content on social media. All right, so let's take a look at the umbrella. So I just want to say that it's a really ugly umbrella. I made it on, I don't know if anybody uses this thing called Miro, and it's like a whiteboard basically. Whoa, sorry, just trying to get to the next slide. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, so here's my ugly umbrella. It looks like it's gone through like the thunderstorm that hit Nova Scotia last night. So, so yeah, I drew this out on my trackpad. And the idea here is that you can kind of imagine, sorry if you hear my kids screaming in the background, hopefully you don't, is that, you know, you can picture raindrops coming down on the umbrella and then them coming down at the various points, and then you can come up with your topic. So you can picture like topic 1 would be like a big drop, and then, oh, just one sec. Okay, sorry about that. So I couldn't really make raindrops that would have looked any good, so I just used boxes. But you have one topic. Just one second. No, you can't. So yes, so there's various topics, and you can choose however many, you know, kind of points on the umbrella as you want. You can have 5, you can have 10, you know, if you have like all these ideas, but at least it helps kind of create these, you know, you can call them content buckets or, you know, content categories. So you're picturing those drops of rain coming down the umbrella, and then there's a big drop, and then it kind of creates these like 4 little drops or 5 or 6 little drops from that certain particular topic. So if you have something to draw with, you can jot down this visual. I find things a lot easier when I can see them in a visual way like that. But of course you can, use anything, make a big circle in the middle and then just have like circles coming out and then other circles from that or something. But having something visual can really help with brainstorming. So the idea here, I just kind of had an example of a flower farm. So let's say one topic could be product inspiration. And if you're like a vegetable or a meat producer, topic one, like product inspiration, could be recipes. So that's a really good use of topic one. So as an example, I don't really know flower farms too well, but I just kind of guess certain things that might be of interest. So using like foraged fillers, like the stuff that you put in, like the the pretty things that fill in a bouquet, like do-it-yourself bouquets, or how to keep your bouquets nicer for longer, or holiday decoration ideas. And so I'm using an example of a flower farm here, but I also want to make this universal too, so that anybody who's looking to come up with ideas for content could use this as a template. So let's just say a product inspiration. And if you're a dairy farm, you can, maybe Dairy Farmers of Canada posts like really great, cheese recipe or something, or like, lasagna or something like that, like things using dairy products, that could be an idea for an example. And so behind the scenes, that's obviously a really great topic, because it really gets people to get to know you. And what I've really found, and I think I write this on a different slide, but it's really great to notice in your feed what gets the most engagement. So I was just looking at a couple farms' Facebook pages, and what I was noticing is that when they have a picture of themselves, or maybe they were in a magazine or something like that, that gets a lot of engagement. A lot of people who are, friends and like kind of loyal followers and things are there to congratulate them and to say like, oh, that's such a nice picture, and it's much more personal. And then they might share a recipe and they might get a tenth of the engagement. There might be a few shares, there might be some likes, and part of that too could be the algorithm. It could be the Facebook algorithm favoring a picture with a face on it versus a link that is off the platform. So that's where it can get a little bit tricky. And I don't, pretend that I know every single thing about the algorithm, but I think there are certain things that it prefers. But it definitely is trying to keep people on the platform. It favors things that keep people on the platform, and provide connection. So that kind of like human connection, having pictures with faces or things like that. But in terms of examples of behind the scenes content, it could be, a picture and like a little bit about you, maybe how, your story of how you started farming, stuff like that. Maybe a harvest picture. Maybe there's storm damage. Maybe there's like a hailstorm and it took out like a swath of a flower crop or something. Maybe you got a new tool that you want to share. So there's just some ideas for kind of like behind the scenes. Another one could be production, and that is kind of easy. Like sometimes for content, like farming is actually something that's a little bit easier to come up with content, because sometimes you just have to like basically document what you're doing as opposed to someone like an accountant, where they're trying to make up this interesting content for people, where I think farming is just like naturally interesting, and you're just doing so many things already that if you're able to take you know, a video or a picture or something, I know that's work too, and it's effort, it's like the extra thing, but it could definitely, you know, it's kind of like what you're doing can become your content very easily. So things like maybe seeding, trellising, weeding, pruning. So, you know, if you're a livestock farm, like feeding the animals, like animals got out, like broken fence, you know, stuff like that. Like new watering system or whichever. And then one of the topics in your content plan should really be about sales, so that, and I hope these boxes aren't, just gonna put that down there, covering up my slide. But so if you go to the farmer's market, you could, if you're there on a Saturday, for example, like every Friday, you could, and of course, a lot of farmers do this already. They say, you know, this is what we have this week. And that I can tell you as a consumer, like that works really well. And, you know, if I know somebody has like ground cherries or something, my kids love ground cherries, I'm going to try to get to that producer right away at like 8 o'clock when the market opens, so I can get the ground cherries for them because it's a special treat. So having, you know, depends on what your sales cycles are like too. You know, do you only go to the farmer's market once a week, or do you have, you know, restaurant drop-offs a couple times a week, or so whatever kind of works for, and now of course I'm talking a little bit more of direct sales, direct marketing, because obviously for commodity, I'm losing my words, supply managed commodities, you don't have to worry about the sales. But so for, yeah, depending on your sales cycles, you can align your posts with when you sell. And there could be something like pre-order, like maybe, I know a farm I follow, they just had pre-orders for Thanksgiving turkeys. So there could be, you know, content around that. And so in another one that is really important, I wanted to make this point, is it's really important to have an email list for your farm so that you can create your own database of being able to communicate with your customers. Because as we know with social media, it is not, we don't control the platform. So if Facebook does something and regulators don't like it and they shut them down, or Facebook sees something you're doing as not in line with their policies, they may shut you down. So it's always a very good idea to have an email list that people are able to join, either as a standalone landing page, and or I would say and if you can, also on your website. So I'll show you an example of this a little bit later on. I just really wanted to make that point that email marketing is actually really, really key. And you can integrate that into your customer journey, and for direct marketing, I can really help you, you know, have a list of your buyers, a list of your customers, and it integrates really well. If you do have an online sales platform, if you have Shopify or Localine or something, or Square, you can, you know, kind of integrate all of that together. So, and then an example of a fifth topic could be, you know, like flower varieties. So Dahlia sunflowers, Cosmos peonies, and you can kind of have a feature of those. So just from this one umbrella with the 5 points and taking, you know, 4 droplets of water on each, you have 20 content ideas. So if you had the goal of posting 20 times in a month or 20 times over 2 months, whatever it is, then you now have in a matter of a few minutes, I literally did this in like 5-10 minutes of just coming up with ideas. And you will have that content for a month or 2 months or 3 months or however many, posts you do. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm not sure how you come up with content, but making it streamlined and kind of coming up with ideas all at one time so that you have a lot of things to draw from when you're busy. And you can, excuse me, you can use this seasonally. You can use this over and over again. So if you decide that you want to have these, 20 pieces of content, you can literally, use them and then repeat them. So, maybe you would tweak it because maybe in October you'd talk about some sort of, holiday decorations for Halloween, and then November, maybe it's more getting ready for Christmas or something. And then maybe for the varieties, you would talk about, you've already done 4, so the next month you would do another 4 or something like that. So you could do, let's say 5 posts a week. Excuse me. And then you could just keep these, categories kind of repeating for yourself. And the other thing too is that this is content that you're coming up with. But don't forget that you can share other people's content. So you don't have to come up with everything. If you see something another farm is doing, or a recipe that the Federation of Agriculture or that your industry association puts out or something like that, then that is a great thing for you to be able to share. And then it, it automatically cites the source of it. It shows that you got it from them. So it's not like you're stealing their content. You're just sharing what they're doing. So I would encourage you to share other people's content in addition to putting on your own content. So are there any questions about this or any comments, or do you want to, we could even run through another example if you, we can kind of workshop this with you. If you have a livestock farm and you're having trouble coming up with content, we can kind of run through some ideas, help you brainstorm if you want. Let's see if I can check out the chat again. Where is there it is. I'm not hearing anything, Catherine, so I'll just keep going.
Sounds good. I do really like your umbrella.
Okay. As I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is really bad.
Much better than anything.
But then I just went with it because, pardon?
Much better than anything I could draw.
I wish I had like a little, pen that I could do it right on the screen. And here again, I just kind of, made some notes kind of overall that your core messaging really of a brand comes from its core values, to be clear on your audience and who you're speaking to. Don't be shy to engage with stories. You can tell a story about, maybe the relationship between like a goat and your dog on the farm or something, or like so-and-so got out, or, slipping in the mud or whatever, right? You're just kind of, it doesn't have to be showing this, we're all perfect. It actually engages people so much to see, your humanity, and that you make mistakes and you fall face first in the mud, or, you know, stuff like that. And it's okay to repeat content. So if you have something that, you know, you've already talked about pruning or something like that a few months ago, you know, talk about pruning again and use maybe a different picture. And then you could even copy and paste the information, excuse me, and put a different picture, put like a little video or something. Because of course, as we all know, the Facebook feed kind of changes daily, and because you're a page and not a personal profile, your reach may not be as you know, as good. You know, let's say you might have 1,000 people on your page. It could be that only 10% of people who follow you are even going to see what you post. So that can definitely be a tricky thing to navigate. So by all means, you know, reuse content. Don't be afraid of that. The chances of somebody who would have seen it a few months ago that would be like, oh, didn't they say that already? You know, I mean, it's really not a huge deal. So, and if you have, you know, something that you're encouraging people to join your email list, you know, you could have that all written out and then just kind of use that every, you know, once a month or something, and just kind of have a different picture, or, you know, have a little video and then just say it instead of, you know, having the whole text. So just to kind of, you can change things up or use the same content in kind of different ways. And obviously this is a really good thing to do sort of more in the winter. So you can almost kind of like, you know, have a social media plan in advance if you want. So it's not so much on the fly, if that would be helpful for you. Okay, going the wrong way. There we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where in terms of the platforms. So when I asked the question before, it sounded like most people are using Facebook and Instagram. And I'm just curious, where do you seem to get the most reach and engagement with your audience? What I can say from working with farms is that they tend to, if they do have Facebook and Instagram, they tend to have a lot more followers on Facebook, I've noticed, and it seems like more engagement. So maybe they might have 700 or 800 on their Facebook page and maybe like 120 on Instagram. So, and of course you can cross post because they're owned by the same company, which is convenient. So you can post one place and then it'll automatically go to both. But at the same time, you should probably just even ask yourself, do I need to be on both? You know, if I have really good engagement on Facebook, and that's where, you know, there's a lot more sharing or more commenting, and that's where my audience tends to hang out, then you definitely don't need to be all over the place. You can just choose one and then just, you know, try your best at you know, doing really well with that one. So I think when we were getting registrations for this presentation, I just wanted to know, you know, what were people looking to get out of it and what were people's questions. And there were a couple comments that came in about engaging people. So like, how do you best engage your audience? And so the behind the scenes things that I've already talked about really are the kind of the getting to know your brand message and being consistent with that, and having some content that is purposeful, you know, and and has, and that speaks to your audience and having an idea of who your audience is. So all of those pieces will help with that engagement because it's kind of laying the foundation of what you're putting together for content. And the actual kind of active engaging, it's important, like the who, who is monitoring it. So if you put something out there, is there someone who's going to be seeing that someone made a comment, that you can then comment back? So just in terms of being clear on if it's just you, or if there's like a couple, or if there are a few people that are keeping an eye on it. Because of course you can schedule posts in advance. So if you were so keen that you, in January, you sat down and you kind of put together ideas for posts, and then you went to Facebook, or you had something like Later or Planoly, and you went in and made the posts and scheduled them all. Is there somebody that's going to be monitoring and, being able to interact with people? And also sometimes people find you on Facebook and then send you a message and get a hold of you that way to see how they can buy from you, or if you have, are you taking orders for a side of beef now or something like that. So in terms of the engagement, that's obviously really important to sort of be monitoring it and being on top of that. And the other thing too that'll give you clues as to what works well for your audience is to pay attention to the numbers and just notice, kind of like how I said I was going through someone's feed and I was really noticing the higher numbers. I know like over 100 people liking a post of their picture and talking about something personal versus, maybe 10 people when they shared a recipe. So that's a really big difference in engagement. So when you pay attention to the types of posts that you're posting, and maybe, noticing like if you have those categories, kind of like the umbrella content brainstorm, that you can really pay attention to, like, what categories people seem to really like the behind the scenes types of things, or yeah, people seem to really like the production. Because of course you might have a lot of other farmers who are in your audience. So maybe if you're talking about, this new, weed thing that works really well for your farm, then you might get a lot of interest. And then of course there's using video. That tends to be like Instagram and Facebook both. I think the algorithms, the company really likes video content. And reels are obviously really big, and stories and that kind of thing. My husband has a farm and he grows vegetables, and he just thought like, oh, well, I'll just try reels. So I don't know if anybody has tried reels on Instagram. And he made, I can't remember how many he's made, maybe like 4 or 5. So the second or third one, he got about 40,000 views, and it kind of felt like it went viral, and there were farmers from India that were starting to follow him and commenting on the videos and stuff like that. And it was so interesting. I think, for you to really think about your audience, do you want to be really focused on your local audience and the people in your community, the people who will be buying from you? Or do you really want to be building the education and putting out content that speaks to a whole bunch of people? Maybe, that you want to put it out and it would be like global reach. Everybody who would have different goals, so I think that's really important for you to be clear on your goals of why you're using social media. And, also, do you want to be connecting with other farmers and, almost having that education piece be really part of your social media, in terms of like really teaching, like, oh, I found this hack of how to do this and it saves me all this time. as an example. So that, of course, isn't directed towards the people who will be buying from you at the farmers market, but it's kind of showing your expertise and your knowledge, and it's potentially helping somebody else save a lot of time on their farm, wherever they may be. So those are kind of things to think about as well. And I had mentioned also before about using social media to build your email list. And so I'll talk about the landing page, and I'll show you an example of that. So next, we're going to be looking at tips for optimizing your Facebook page, and then also using Instagram hashtags. So are there any questions or comments on this one? I just hear my kids crying, but oh, it's so weird how I don't see the chat and then it just kind of drops down all of a sudden. Okay, any insights into Facebook online store option? Yeah, so that would be a really, if you're able to sell on your Facebook page, I know even through, okay, so here's a question for you. Do you have an online store, an e-commerce store on a website? For example, do you have Shopify or something off of Facebook? Because some people only have Facebook. Some people have their own website, and then they use Facebook for visibility. I know that, as an example, Shopify, even if you don't have a full Shopify site, you can have Shopify Lite, and you can be selling, basically it integrates into your Facebook page. So anytime that you're selling online, and Tyler, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you might sell meat, if I have that right. In which case, you may be kind of open every day. You know, you might be able to take orders anytime and then just do delivery, do a drop off, or do a pickup or something. So again, kind of going back to that, be clear on your sales cycle. So when you do take orders, and if there's a delivery or a pickup or pre-order and then bring it to the farmer's market or something like that. And it would probably be different for vegetables or things that are that could go bad versus or like perishable versus like on frozen meat. And so you can tailor your online store to, you know, really whatever you want, just being able to communicate to people. We have an order deadline on Wednesday, and then so we can pack the orders and we'll bring it to the market on Saturday for you to pick up, for example. So I would say any way that you can make it easy for people to buy from you, and if it makes your life easier, then that's a great thing. So with an online store, if someone finds you and they can automatically see what you have, and then they can, you know, put in an order right then and there and pay with their credit card, or send you an e-transfer or something, then that's making it really easy to buy from you. So that's great. And I should say too that I work one-on-one with a lot of people. So if you want to follow up with me on anything that we're talking about tonight, then I have my contact information on the last slide. So feel free to get in touch with me, and we can talk in more detail about you know, your customer journey and your online sales and things like that. So I just wanted to show you an example here, Small Holdings Farm. So this is one thing that I see is kind of like prime real estate. Having your banner picture, a lot of times we only have a picture and we don't have any text on it. But this is a great opportunity to show people, well, what, you know, it's Small Holdings Farm, but what do you sell and what are you all about? So I think this farm has had professional pictures taken. And so they did this using, I think they used Canva, C-A-N-V-A. And if anybody would have done the, I believe the 40-hour marketing course through the Federation, I think they had a portion of that course talking about Canva. So you can get a free account, and then it allows you to make, you know, you can make different posts, you can make different graphics for stories and that kind of thing. So there are two aspects I wanted to point out here. One was this banner picture here that you're able to basically use this as real estate to let people know who you are. And also the second thing too is that they do have a sign up here for their email list. So Small Holdings Farm has, I think their main sales channel is a CSA. So they want to get people to be signing up for the CSA. So, so they say, join our email list for up-to-date vegetable availability. And they also go to the market as well. So they might be sending out a weekly email to say, you know, maybe it's Thursday or Friday, to say, this is what we've got at the market this Saturday. And if you want to, maybe they allow for pre-orders or something, or if, you know, we don't have many beans, if you want to, you know, if you want to, for us to set aside some beans for you, or like, you know, pre-sell them, then you can do that as well. So there are a lot of different options when you have an email list to be able to communicate directly with your customers. So when you click on this, it opens up a landing page. It's just basically a one-page sign up with a name, email, and they used MailChimp to make that. And then they just connected it to their Facebook page. It takes about 2 or 3 steps to do something like that. Of course, if you prefer, usually on your page, it says message. So if you do want people to land on your Facebook page and be able to send you a Facebook Messenger message, then that's great. But if you would like to build your email list, and if that's a way that you use to sell your products, then this is a great option. Are there any questions about that? Not hearing anything, so I will go to the next. It's not very responsive. There it is. Nope. Okay. So, and in terms of Instagram, so I wanted to just kind of have a little piece on Facebook. And so what I see as a great opportunity for visibility, or for people to find you on Instagram, is through hashtags. So we have at the top left-hand corner, and somebody who goes to the Wolfville Farmers Market. And so this was the text, and she had a picture of her beautiful market stand. And so she tagged the farmer's market, and then she used, so that's the @ symbol. So that's tagging when you put the @ symbol, because that lets that account know that you've mentioned them. And then chances are the Wolfville Farmers Market might see that and then share that on their site. And then the hashtag that they used is farmers market, and then farmers market display, Wolfville Farmers Market, and do it in Wolfville. So they're using geography, like a geographic location. So they're talking about the town. They're talking about the town's farmers market where they're at. And then they're talking about farmers market displays. So they might, get a lot of people from all over the world seeing that. So it might be other farmers market vendors. So they're promoting farmers markets. They're promoting their specific farmers market. So it helps them be found. And some people do follow hashtags. So if I'm somebody who goes to the Wolfville Farmers Market a lot, I might follow, and I'm like a loyal fan, I might follow Wolfville Farmers Market. And then that post would show up in my Instagram feed, and I would be able to see, oh yeah, I think this is 7 Acres Farm. 7 Acres Farm has a beautiful display today, and they have tulips. That's great to know before I even go to the market. And the Truro Farmers Market, they have their own hashtag. Actually, I think I just skipped a slide. I just realized. Sorry about that. I'll come back to that in a sec. So in terms of the hashtags, the whole point of them is to have visibility and be found on the platform. And you can create your own. So I would highly recommend, if you have a Instagram profile and you have, you can use your farm name. So Taproot Farm came up with their own expression called Scotian Diet. So that's what they use. They probably use Taproot Farm as well. But that's what's one of their values, is eating local. So, and supporting local farms and eating what's in season. So a hashtag of Scotian Diet kind of fits the bill for it ticks the boxes for all of those things. So they're advocating a local seasonal diet. And then there are other people who might get their CSA box and tag them at Taproot Farm, and then also use the hashtag Scotian Diet. So then their customers are helping to spread the word, and their name on Instagram. So yeah, if you don't already have your own or use your own farm name or something like that, I would recommend doing that, and using one, if you go to the market, to use hashtags that your market uses. And also there might be, like a business, like Pictou County business hashtag or something, where other businesses would see that. So you can use geography and like your county, your town, and then specifically the market as an example. And you can, and when you're looking at hashtags, it's good to do some research and just take a look at, if you do the # farmers market, that might be a really big hashtag, where like there might be like 2 million posts, and then if it's that big, chances are you're going to get lost in that one. So sometimes it's good to put them out there, because you're kind of putting yourself out, into the world of Instagram. But if you really want to use hashtags to get in front of new customers in your local area, using like the farmers market ones, or the more local, town or county, are much better. So if they are in the hundreds or the thousands or 10,000s, that's a pretty good range. I looked at one that was like a dairy one, and I think it was like one post. I came up with like, I don't know, Dairy Farmers Nova Scotia or something like that. And there would only been one post. So that's not the greatest hashtag to use, unless it's your own and you're kind of starting that one, and then you'll use it every time you post, and you'll kind of build that up. But if only one person has posted, that means, not many people are kind of looking for that, or would think to use it. So it's good to have ones that are sort of well used, but not too big that you'll get lost in it. And then you could also tag industry associations or markets or business associations, because they will likely share that on their platform, and they may have a much larger audience than you. So you are leveraging their audience and getting your word out into their audience. And that will hopefully build your audience as well. And then also just in terms of sharing content from other platforms, as a reminder that you can, you know, you don't have to come up with all the content. You can, or I shouldn't say other platforms, but other accounts. All right, so I'm just going to go over a couple of these examples, and then we're going to be wrapping up. We can take some more questions if anyone has any. So again, for the Truro Farmers Market, they have different, you know, shop small, shop local, eat local. So this is where it really helps to think about who your audience is, who your customer is, and what they're interested in. You know, are they the people who really like to support local, eat local, and support small business in their area? Is it people who like organic? Is it people who want to support family farms? There's a whole slew of interests there. So this is where it really helps to kind of hone in on the interests of your ideal customers. And Mangrove Farms, this one is, they were from Ontario, I think, but they had some great hashtags here. There's one, Young Farmers, Proud to Farm, Ag More Than Ever, Dairy Done Right, By Canadian, Women Who Farm, Agvocate, Farm Her. So these are a lot of great ideas. And so the whole hashtag research is sort of just putting something in the search bar to kind of see what's out there, and then you can land on people who use a lot of hashtags, and that would give you ideas for what you can use. So some people have this one, and as well as the Farm for Life one, they put the hashtags in the actual post, and the Truro Farmers Market one, they put the hashtags in the first comment. So you can do either, you can kind of mix it up. It can, if it's in the comment, it might kind of signal to the algorithm that, oh, somebody's, you know, commenting on it, and even though it's you, it might kind of, you know, help that along a little bit. But yeah, there are a lot of great examples here. And one thing I wanted to mention is that I was looking at some dairy hashtags, and there is, of course, the flip side of it, that there are a lot of vegan activists that are really against dairy farming that are sort of co-opting it, or they're using dairy hashtags to kind of flood the hashtag with you know, messages that dairy farming isn't ethical or whatever they're saying. So that's something to be really aware of. And of course, I think, you know, I didn't look for every industry, but for dairy, that was really prominent when I was looking at some dairy hashtags. So definitely do your research, go to the hashtag, you know, before you use it, and just kind of see, is it sort of flooded with, you know, anti-dairy messaging, or is it, you know, a lot of farmers using it? And you can decide, you know, do you want to be using it or not? So that's kind of, you know, a bit of the dark side of social media too. It's a big world out there. So it's just something to be aware of, and as you go about, you know, posting and engaging in social media.